Hi out there. Today I wanted to talk about heartache. One of the things I think I mentioned in the last episode was being able to stay strong in hard times and kind of be yourself and not change for other people. And in that, one of the things that I mentioned was obviously being yourself is very important. And generally, during times of heartache, um, specifically during a breakup, people typically want to change themselves because they think that the reason that the person broke up with them was because of something they did or a certain way that they are or a way they act or whatever it might be. And that can trigger actually a couple of different things. One, depression can typically set in because you might already have a hard time dealing with who you are on a daily basis. And then, you open yourself up to someone else to be a part of your life. And then they end up leaving you for whatever reason it might be. So that obviously can add to depression. It can add to doubts about yourself and your self worth. And then it ends up becoming something where you want to change who you are because of what you went through and you don't want to go through that again. So you think, well, if I change myself, then and I become, you know, more what I think people are going to want me to be, then I don't have to worry about being hurt again. And unfortunately, that's not true. Um, and it can be hard. I've certainly had my heart broken many a times, and I was already in a place where I didn't feel like I was worthy um, of other people. And, during my depression, it came on because, again, I was, picked on and ridiculed, and I was going through changes. I didn't like the way that my body was turning out to be, my looks was turning out to be. I think I've mentioned I had horrible acne for either 8 to 10 years. And, over time, something like that can affect you if you let it. And, on top of that, to try to open myself to be with someone else and then open myself so that person can know who I am. And even in the beginning, I was very standoffish and I wanted to, I don't know, put off the impression that I was different than what I was because I was afraid that once they knew who I was, that they wouldn't like me and then they would judge me just like everybody else. And so, relationships and heartache are really tough. And for a lot of people, that could be a really big driving factor of depression or suicide, um, or, a negative outlook on a lot of things. And it's tough. Unfortunately, heartbreak is something that you're going to experience many times in your life. But it's important to know a couple of things. If you've listened to the majority or at least some of the things that I've talked about, it's it's very important for you to understand who you are and to develop these tools to help you understand who you are. You know, and these are things you'll kind of find out on your own as you start to pay attention to yourself and your thoughts and your body and try to block out all of these other things that people are saying. So, I can't tell you that there's an easy switch or an easy button or something that you can do really quickly to kind of make things better. It's just that things are going to be difficult and things can be difficult, especially heartache. But hopefully, you'll be able to listen more to yourself and find your center and find out who you are and love who you are and grow with that person and not try to become somebody else. Because if you try to become somebody else, kind of like when I talked about being yourself and paths that your life is on, when you try to become someone else, you get off of your path, and then it can take a short amount of time or a very long time to be able to come back to your path and really realize, who you are and appreciate who you are. And I think it's very important to be able to understand a lot of that in the beginning of your life, and especially if you're going through hard times, because it'll make those hard times easier. It'll make those changes easier because changes, again, are very difficult. So when if you're in a situation or you've recently gone through a situation that has made you depressed because of someone leaving you, whether it be, a girlfriend or boyfriend or a spouse or a lover, or even a friend that you were really good friends with that for whatever reason now doesn't want to be friends. You still don't need to change who you are. Because if you end up changing who you are, you end up doing that for your entire life. I've talked in other episodes about putting up walls. Well, if you start to change who you are, you start to build up this wall brick by brick. By every single change that comes in your life or every single event that comes in your life, if you try to do something other than what you think you should do and what you feel you should do, you keep adding another brick. So as you get older and you start to meet other people, you're introducing somebody who you aren't. And by that, it makes it more difficult for you to be happy in general. It also makes it more difficult for you to start to break down this wall and really become the person that you are. Because if you start changing now, then every hard thing that you run into in your life, you're going to try to become something else or become someone else. And it's not that. First off, it's very unhealthy for your body. Secondly, it's almost like lies. If you say a lie and then you tell somebody else a lie, then it becomes this whole snowball effect process, because in some cases little lies can turn out to be big lies, and then it becomes more difficult because now you've got to hang on to all of these lies that are out there and you can't let it slip up. And it's a very hard and difficult way to live, and it's not a happy way to live. So trying to, one example of changing yourself is going through heartache and trying to become someone else that you think is going to be able to have a different persona and protect you, but it's not. And it doesn't have to be like that. And even though it can be very difficult with what you're going through right now, I just, in my heart, think that it's very important to not change who you are, because it will take you so much it'll take you so much more time in life to come back to who you are and to really understand what makes you happy. Because if you start out changing yourself for some person, then you start to want to change in everything of your life. It becomes this whole cyclical process. You get you change who you are, then you end up changing the clothes you wear, and then you end up changing the music you like, and then all of a sudden you want to change the car you drive and the I don't know, whatever it might be. The point is you end up changing more than just one single aspect of your life, and it can make it so much more difficult to be happy, because you'll think that these things, these cars, these clothes, these whatever it might be, are making you happy, but you're now at a point in your life where you don't even know who you are, and you don't know what makes you happy. You think you know what makes you happy, but it probably doesn't, because you've become someone that you're not. You've changed. And heartache does that. It's certainly it's going to be impossible to not want to put up some sort of wall when you go through heartache or loss and things like that, because that's just what we naturally do. We naturally want to be able to find ways to protect ourselves, so that in the event something like this happens again, we already have some sort of defense mechanism. And that's certainly natural, and I think that that's healthy to do. I just don't think that it's healthy to try to change who you are. I'll give you an example. I I have a ton, but I can't think of any except this particular one right now. There was a girl that I liked in 8th grade, and she didn't like me. We were friends, but she didn't like me on the level that I liked her. She, however, did like my brother, and I have brown hair and he has blonde hair, and I asked her one time why she liked my brother over me, because it bothered me. I don't know. I just wanted to find out. So I asked her, because we were still kind of friends, and she said, "Well, one of the things I like about your brother is that he has blonde hair." So I decided that I was going to change my hair color. And I didn't do it like any sane person would do as far as going out and buying dye. I decided to use hydrogen peroxide, because that will naturally lighten your hair, and lemon juice. So I don't know how long I did this, because it's been so long ago. Um, But I just remember waking up both at night and in the morning and putting hydrogen peroxide in my hair at night and letting it sit. And in the morning, I would rinse it out and then put lemon juice in my hair and let that sit throughout the day. And there were some days that I would go to school and I could smell the lemon juice in my hair. So I imagined if I could smell it, everybody else could. And of course, she didn't end up, wanting to date me or liking me even more, and it didn't change anybody else's perception on me. But it did make me realize that I had done something stupid to try to have someone like me. And of course, it didn't work out. I mean, my hair certainly got blonde. It wasn't, it didn't, blonde doesn't work well on me, I guess is the easiest way to put it. Um, but I did, I physically changed a part of myself, so hoping that somebody else could like me. And then I had another friend of mine. He was older than me and he wore clothes that were very popular at the time. And he was a fairly popular guy. And so I started, buying clothes that he wore. And I would even buy his clothes when he got done wearing them just so I could have his brand. And in the end, it didn't matter. I ended up blowing um, my allowance money and the money that I'd made for my job to try to buy these clothes so that more people would like me. And it didn't feel like me to begin with, because every time I walked out of the house, I had to live with this blonde hair that wasn't mine. And I had to live with these clothes that I didn't really like. And on top of that, if I did meet somebody um, who would talk to me, y- clothes and hair didn't really come up in the conversation. So I don't know. Those are just two quick little scenarios that I can think of where, for a brief period of time, I changed my life. And don't get me wrong, those weren't the only times in my life I've changed who I was. But I'm just trying to think of a quick example of a scenario where I wanted somebody to like me, and I went through the trouble of changing my hair. And people do that on a daily basis. You take a look at Botox, you take a look at implants and things like that. Like, it doesn't make sense to me, because now you're presenting somebody who isn't you. And now you have to live with this transformation that you've made. And while you might like it, and some people do, and a lot of people do, it's still not who you are. And what happens is as you get older and you start to realize what is really important in life, and when you look back at all the things that you've done in your life and what you feel like you've accomplished and your goals that you've made and things like that, you sadly, if you've made wrong paths, you realize how much time you've lost. There are so many years of my life I've lost because I was trying to do and be somebody else. And in the big scheme of things, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I mean, if you are somebody who does care about those things, try to figure out why. Why do you really care about what people think? I mean, I can understand it's nice to be wanted and it's nice to be envied, but that only lasts for so long. And think about how long you spent changing your life and all of the heartache and the things that you had to go through to become this person you are today, to get envy for how long? A day, a week, a month? Yet all the sacrifices you made to get to that point, there's just so much that you have missed out on in life. Um, Another example, not necessarily dealing with heartache, but I've thought about this every time I've talked, and I've tried to find the right place to put it, and this will kind of fit. Um, Still about change, again, how quickly things can change. You think something is very important in life, and it ends up not being. So think about, there's 100 examples, but I remember when the PlayStation 3 came out, there was only a limited quantity, and people were spending over $1,000 to get it. Now, the unit came out, I think it was $300 or $400, or maybe 500. I don't quite remember, but it certainly wasn't $1,000. You may know someone, or you may have wanted to be one of those people who spent that amount of money to get a PlayStation 3. And for what? Seriously, for what? Y- you spent the time to track down who had it or where they had it, or to buy it off eBay, or spend hours on eBay or wherever you could find it to try to get it. and you spent all this time and now double or triple the amount of money than what it cost to get, and you spent your hard-earned time to try to make that money, all so you could get something before somebody else had it? And now you can go to GameStop and buy it for a fraction of the cost. So my point is, at that point in time, you might think, or people might think that buying this new PlayStation 3 was the greatest thing in the world. And yet, where does it end up today? In a used game shop that you can buy for a fraction of the cost. And how and what did it cost you or these people to go and do that? That's a I use this as an example because it still deals with changing who you are and the outcome not really being much of anything. You might have had people who are envious of you for a few weeks, but then when it hit the shelves, everybody could get it. And then today, everybody can get it. So if you think of something like that, and then you relate that to heartache that you've had from a recent loss of somebody leaving you or breaking up with you, and you want to change who you are, think about the amount of time it's going to take to change who you are. And then think about the repercussions it's going to have years later. And how much is that change really going to be worth in many years from now? I think that that's important because there's so many things that you're going to miss out on. Just like those people who spent hours upon hours and days and weeks trying to be the one of the first people to get a PS3. Imagine the amount of time that was lost for that. And we're applying this to your life. Changing who you are can just can delay so much happiness that you can experience. And while you might think changing who you are now will bring you happiness because it will prevent future heartache or it will prevent bullies and other people judging you, it's not an answer. And I truly believe that internal joy and happiness speaks volumes over everything else. And I hope that's what you find. That's what I want you to find. I wish that there was a way that when I was young, somebody could reach inside of me and pull out this ball and would say, "This is your happiness. This is what you need to do to keep it." And I wish that I could do that for everyone. But I think a great part in life is finding out who you are and growing with who you are. And if you don't know who you are, I promise you that you do. I said in another episode, think back to a time in your life where you were naturally happy. I don't care if you were 4 or 5 or 12 or 15 or 20 or 30 or 50, whatever it might be. Think back to a time where it was just raw happiness. It may have been a joke somebody told you, or a comedian you were watching on TV, or a birthday gift that somebody gave, whatever it might be. Just think to a time when you were happy, and that's truly who you are. And it pains me to think that there are people out there who don't believe in who they are, and they want to change their life to become something that they're not. Because if you don't know who you are now, changing to being somebody else still isn't you. And I want that for you. I want you to be happy. I don't want you to end your life. I don't want you to think that there are just terrible things that are going to come your way. And while there are things that will, it's still very important to hopefully understand that heartache is going to come, loss is going to come. And I think it's really trying to truly deal with that in a healthy way. And I'll spend more time on that in another episode. Have mentioned before, I'm going to try to keep these short, and I've already gone over 15 minutes. I'm getting ready to be at 20. So I'll even have a follow-up episode for this, still dealing with heartache, maybe more focused on loss and loss of friends and things like that. But for this, I feel like I kind of more focused on, relationships and losing somebody and wanting to change, because that's what I did over and over and over again in my life. And I just realized that it was such a waste. And I hope that I can save some of that time and wastefulness for you, and you can find out really who you are and continue to grow in love with who you are. So thank you for listening. Again, if there's any particular topic that you want me to cover or discuss, you can send me a message here on the discussion board on my channel. You can also email me at lifelivseries at gmail.com. Thanks. Take care of yourself. Bye.